This video is in tribute to Mike Ilitch. As a young boy, I lived in Garden City where Mr. Ilitch started Little Caesars. He had two locations in Garden City, one on Ford Road and another one further down the road. And as a boy, before my dad passed, Mr. Ilitch used to go door to door and put rubber band advertisements for Little Caesars on doors. Many years after my dad passed, and I went through much difficulty trying to figure out my life. I went into alcohol rehab, and then I realized that I wanted to do better for myself. The job I had was god awful. I was treated awfully, and part of that was masked with all my drinking. I went to work for Mr. Ilitch back in 1987, and I was hired as a minute trainee. It took me some time to grasp being someone that could be in charge, and the strength of the Little Caesars organization back in those days. They would send managers to management class, and I had support from in store from many coworkers. They had no idea how I was relearning how to look at life. I had some of the most fantastic moments when during my time while I worked there. A lot of fun, great time. One of my friends became a voice in Detroit radio for 20 years, Sean Maligian. And during my time working for Little Caesars, I also became very appreciative of the opportunity that I had there. And during that time, Bob Herbert had an incident at Goose Louie's. Shortly after the series was over, I was 3 weeks into recovery. I wanted to go to Joe and help Bob. I turned, you go down to the Joe Louis Arena when there's not a game, the season's over. Looking back, how in the world somebody would let me go in there? But what happened was the guy got Doug McLean, and Doug McLean sat me in the locker room at Joe Louis Arena and told me to take care of myself, which I have for nearly 30 years. Also, during my time at Little Caesars, I wrote Mike Ilitch a letter to let him know how appreciative I was of the opportunity. Mr. Ilitch send me a letter. I didn't realize at that time how much I meant, other than at the time I did break down. Sean Maligian was the guy who handed me the letter. I still have a copy of it. Mr. I was supportive and felt if there were a reason why they would do that, that I would get an opportunity. I left usually after about 4 years. But the kindness that was shown to me, both by his Detroit Red Wings employees and the letter he gave me, are things that will live with me forever. Also, during that time, in trying to change the way I looked at the world, I found a person who was having trouble with the car, and she introduced me to Bob Robert, who was one of my, people will say whatever they want. He was one of my heroes because of the way he played, and later on, how he turned his life around. Everyone has things in their life that they shudder to think that they did when they were younger. And I have those things. And that's what made it so hard for me to get where I am now. But I did the work. And I try not to disrespect anybody for their feelings or point of views. I may not agree with it, but I move on. It may not be something I accept, so I'm not going. I take the words in, but if it's not something in my point of view, these are things that I was taught both by Bob and Mr. Illich. I didn't have someone to step in when my dad passed. When I quit drinking, these were two people that showed me different kindnesses. I had met Bob back in '89 when with a girl who had car trouble. She worked at a bar that Bob went into, and Bob gave me about a half an hour of his time. I ran into Bob one other time, but I never got to thank him. And though I did thank Mr. Illich in my letter, how extremely grateful I am. I'm not a multimillionaire, but I'm grateful for the life I've had since I quit drinking. And Mr. Illich had so many people like me they touched throughout his 87 years on this planet that he touched this way. And it's not every person that can do that, but that's the era I grew up in when I was younger. People tried to help each other out, even if they didn't understand what you're doing. I knew a few people like that. The problem was they didn't like to get involved with families with loss, so it was kind of hard. I have many people throughout my life that I can thank for not ending up far worse than what I am. But Mr. Illich, thank you for the opportunities, things that changed my thinking, the ability to keep my mind off drinking, and to work my recovery for as long as I have. I'm grateful for the life I've had for the last 30 years. I met, I may have met you once, but I did receive a letter to me that was as good as sitting down and having a conversation with you. It showed me that you were on my side, that you fostered goodwill to somebody who you would never know. God bless you. God has to have a very special place for you. I don't have anything more to say. This is just so hard.